Hey y'all, it's me, Sherilyn. Just Goodness 333 Little Homestead. If we haven't met before, if we met before, hey guys! Listen, I'm going to go on a garden tour. But first, I was here in the kitchen getting my coffee and I said I'm going to show them these tomatoes. They've been here in my windowsill. This was a beefsteak tomato I planted out a couple weeks ago, and a cutworm came along and it chewed right through the stem right at the bottom. I happened to find it early in the morning before it had a chance to wilt and die, and I put it in this jar of water here in the windowsill where it's nice and cool and in the house, you know, and so there's no heat stress. But look at all those roots. I've got to get that in a big pot. I'm going to put this in a big pot and keep it for a couple weeks in a shaded area. I'm going to put it in a good sized pot so it can actually be growing like it would if it were planted in the ground. So that when it does develop a root system and it acclimates to the outside, then I can just pop it in the ground. And here I had a volunteer blue gold berry, which I'm really glad because I didn't have any seeds for those. And it is a, this cat is going crazy running around here. She wants outside. I have taken the suckers off of those so I can have more of those plants. All right, let's get this cat outside before she tears up my house and take a garden tour. Come on. What do you want? You want outside? Are you kidding me? Cats are like kids. Like if they do something all the time, you know, and you think, yeah, you open the door and she just runs right out, you know, and you, she runs out like mad. And then of course, you know, you turn the camera on your kids and you'll say, hey, do that thing. And they look at you like, what? What thing? You know, cats are that way too. Okay, we're here outside. Let's have a peek around. Now, as we go on along this garden tour, I'm going to talk to you about the things that I'm growing and the things that I know will grow really great here. I'm down in 10A, South Florida. And then I'm going to tell you, you know, what I'm growing that I'm experimenting with during this time of year. I'll tell you if I know some things are a sure bet or if some things are kind of chancy. But right here, these garden beds, I don't know if you guys have seen these before. It's been a while since I've done a garden tour. These are just some old porch rails that were on my son's deck that he took down. And I saved them from the scrapyard. And I think they make a really pretty little entryway here now. It's looking kind of pitiful right now. We just came out of the cool weather and going into the warm weather. So we've taken out a lot of things. And there's some dried pole beans there at the top of that trellis. I had some beautiful green pole beans up there. But right here in this bed, I grew 3 rounds of Blue Lake bush beans. And I started those mid-September. Had to deal with some caterpillars, you know. But in mid-September, and now right now, there's a few periwinkles, zinnias, some gladiolus that I'm having a tough time with because I have an infestation of pill bugs in here. But I planted some black-eyed peas. Black-eyed peas are a sure bet for planting this time of year. They love the heat. They love the warm weather. They'll grow all through summer. And I've got some zinnias in here as well. Kind of the same with over here. Here's my peach tree, which I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never grown fruit before. There is my longevity spinach that has been out in the full sun. This is kind of an experiment. I have another one over there by the rabbits that was in full shade. Don't look in that messy shed, y'all. That's another project. It was over there in full shade. You can see it there under the shed window all winter long. It was frost hardy. It grew in the summer last year. It was heat tolerant. It's just wonderful. And again, that's longevity spinach. It's a good tropical plant. And here I got some little miniature zinnias, some gladiolas coming up, some periwinkles, more black-eyed peas. My sweet little bird. And this garden is transitioning. Now, I had shot a video a couple weeks ago, a garden tour, and the files were corrupted. But there were 3 beautiful sunflowers up here. They have since met their demise, and we have this one little one that has popped up. But right here we have bok choy that's gone to seed. I like to leave things in there to go to seed, and the pollinators love it. It's always full of bees about 8:30 in the morning, and not to mention you get to save seeds. That's wonderful. Down here we have coming up for the summer is this Lagos spinach, and it's the purple and green plant here. It's going to grow really tall, and I've got several of them in here. Probably just have a wall of them, and it's going to love the heat. It's going to go all through the summer. Then toward the end of summer, it's going to put off some beautiful fuchsia seed pod heads. It's kind of in the amaranth family, and it's going to be really beautiful. So I can eat on this all summer long. So can my chickens and my rabbits. They love it. Here we have nasturtium. Nasturtium is the cooler weather crop here in South Florida. It's not going to last when it starts getting hot. You can tell it's got a little issues. But let me tell you a nice thing about nasturtium. Nasturtiums are a great trap crop for those little white butterflies that come. And I'll show you the damage they did. I hatched out some caterpillars. But then after the caterpillars came the wasp. And the wasp took care of the caterpillars that I missed. Because I'm telling you, I squish some caterpillars now. I squish them. But here's some of the damage. You can tell it really did its job at keeping the caterpillars off of the bok choy and off of the kale and all of those things, off the brassicas. So in your cooler weather months, definitely grow some nasturtium. If you're, look up when it grows well in your area, because I'm quite aware that not all of you are watching from Florida, and not all of you are even watching from the United States. So hi to all of you. All right, let's see what we've got going on over here. Let's go back and go through that entryway. That's what I want to show you. Now for the summer, we'll have black-eyed peas growing here. They're really pretty. They'll get big and bushy. There'll be some zinnias in there, so some nice flowers. And black-eyed peas put on lovely flowers. But on this trellis here, we are going to, so far as I'm thinking right now, we are going to have the Chinese red noodle beans. I just love those. And I have started some black-eyed Susan flowering vine, which is great for pollinators. And if that grows very well from seed, I may change that out and we'll put some beautiful black-eyed Susan flowering vine on there. As you come in here through this entrance, I told you guys before, oh, look down here. Isn't this sweet? Isn't this sweet? This is my little mouse hole here. I got the door and the windows and they actually glow in the dark. I got them from Walmart.com. Here's the little mouse family. I like that kind of stuff. As I was saying, I told you guys before in past videos that my home was built. It used to be a swamp, and they dug out a rock pit. And all these rocks have come from my property. There's the walkway there and 2 beds completely with rocks from the property, except for a few that came from elsewhere. Over here, I told you I would tell you what's a surefire bet and what's not. So far the black-eyed peas and the noodle beans are going to be a surefire bet. I have trouble with powdery mildew in the summer, but I have planted Kajari melons here. Kajari melons originated in Punjab, And they were actually, the seeds were brought over by a guy. They were so rare, it were hard to find them, and he searched them out and started growing them. And now you can purchase these through Baker Creek Seeds. There's my Kajari melons. They look really beautiful now. I have put these trellises here, just these little poles. Don't look in that shed. I should have shut the door. I put these little poles here as a tripod with the intention of taking twine and tying around it to bring these up. I'm of two opinions on this. As I said, I need a longer arm. I'm on two opinions of this. What if it's going to be so hot that they're higher up? Do you think that would make a difference? They're higher up, closer to the sun, would they scald more easily? And if they're lower down to the ground and bushier on the ground, will they cool the ground off better because they're mounded on the ground, and therefore the soil where their roots are will stay nice and cool? Also, another thing I'm thinking of is, do they, and I don't know this about Kajari melons, I know it about squash, it's true, that they will vine out, and everywhere the little nodule touches on the ground, they'll put down more roots. That's beneficial for them because if the vine gets sick in one spot, or if there's damage to the roots in one spot, there are other areas where it can be uptaking nutrition. So I'm kind of two opinions, and I don't know what to do. Right now I'm kind of leaning toward leaving him on the ground and seeing what happens. But nonetheless, if I decide to use these trellises, they will be there. And in this bed, I have planted black-eyed peas. These are California cowpeas. This is my surefire bet. I'm going to plant them in and around, all around the garden. They're also nitrogen fixers. You could grow these just as a cover crop. You could go to the store and buy a bag of black-eyed peas. If you didn't want to grow anything in your garden in the summer, here in the hot weather, or you had areas that you weren't going to grow in, you could just buy a bag of black-eyed peas and sow them every 6 to 8 inches apart. And then whenever they get taller, you can just chop and drop them. You know, when they start to flower, and their roots are going to be full of nitrogen, that'll be released back into the soil, and the green leaves are going to be also full of nitrogen and nice green manure and a mulch, which we desperately need in summertime. Over here are my pitiful onions. I started these from seed. I had about 200 onions, and these are the sole survivors here. They look really pitiful. And more black-eyed peas. And this is cantaloupe. I'm doing the same thing with the cantaloupe as the Kajari melon. Now I noticed there was a lot of this. Look right here. Do you see that nastiness on there? The little holes in the leaves, and that it's poop. It's caterpillar poop. So I came in here last night before it got dark, and I just sprayed this stuff with BT. And BT is a bacteria that's not harmful to other insects, and it's not harmful to humans, but it is harmful to the larva, any kind of caterpillar, beetle larva, or whatever that might be munching on your stuff. It will take care of them. Over here, I'm trying corn. I've done a little patch of corn before. If you've seen that video, it turned out pretty good. But I just said, why not? Why not? I just want to grow it. Here we have this little patch of corn, and I used my square from my square foot gardening method to sow the seeds in the proper spacing, but not everything came up. So I purchased a pack of seeds yesterday, and I'm going to stick them in there, and we'll see what happens. But here's a funny story. This was watermelon mounds. I had put like 5 watermelon mounds in here and planted watermelon, and none of them came up. But as soon as I planted this corn, guess what came up? So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 watermelons. And I'm just going to let them do their thing. I really am. Just going to let them do their thing. Whatever they want to do, I'm going to let them do it. It may be the most wonderful experiment in the world. Maybe a total flop. But we'll learn. Now on the right side of the garden as we come in, there's these periwinkles. They're called vincas. I can't even get it all in the frame. Let me step back. This is from just one plant. I haven't seen the pollinators on this, and I honestly don't see in this flower. It may have some pollinating benefits, but I don't see any place where a pollinator could feed on that. But they are gorgeous. They're beautiful, and they're year-round here in South Florida. And they come in all kinds of colors, except for now that I want all kinds of colors, I can't find them. I do have some collard greens growing over here, and they were shaded out by this Ethiopian kale that came all the way back here. And so they're just now starting to pick up and grow. And this is just a plain old variety collard green. And this is the Ethiopian kale, Ethiopian spinach. And it has gone to seed, and the bees love it. And honestly, it's beautiful. And when it goes to seed, they produce these little seed pods that you can eat. Where's my hand? Okay, there we go. It produces these little seed pods, and you can eat these, and they'll have a little bit of a kale flavor. And when they dry out, you'll see them. They'll start to turn brown, and then you just pick them off, and you break them up, and all your little seeds fall out. And it's a win-win. Here's some larger ones right there. See, those are getting closer to going to seed. And this plant also, there's a lot of aphids on it. And I hose it off, but I'm just letting them do their thing because this is acting as a trap crop to keep the aphids. You know, if I see them getting out of hand, then I'll spray with something. I did spray other areas with some neem oil, but since I'm having bees on this every morning, I didn't even want to take a chance. They haven't quite made it here yet this morning, but a little later in the morning, it's just going to be buzzing with bees. And I'm just going to let this be a trap crop for those aphids. It's going to keep them off of my other things that are coming up. Now here's the garden from back here. And we're going to go over there. But I don't want to step on the onions. Over here on this trellis, I had planted this spaghetti squash all the way down, and only one came up. So I started them in the 2.5-inch pots in potting mix, and I just planted those out yesterday. Now I'm starting a new regimen of potting things out, and I'll show you that in a minute, but let's get through this garden tour. On the other side of this fence, I've also planted more black-eyed peas. They're a good nitrogen fixer. They're a good companion plant as long as they don't crowd things out. I need to bring some scissors. See? Okay, over here, and the sun's starting to come out. I thought I would get out here before the sun, but this is the sunshine state, so it's almost inevitable I won't. This is pole beans on this. So this is 3 cattle panels put together, and I've got Blue Lake pole beans. They do wonderful. Oh, and this spaghetti squash is also a maybe. All the squash I'm talking about today, for me, is a maybe. It is the time to plant them. It is the time to grow them. But I have terrible pest pressure out here. And I also have issues with powdery mildew. So that's not a surefire bet for me. But if you want to plant it, go ahead. On these pole beans here, I can start planting them out probably toward mid-September, the 1st of October, and I've gotten 3 rounds. This is the 3rd round. They take a little longer than the bush beans because they're an indeterminate variety of beans. But they will climb to the top of this trellis if it doesn't get too hot and if these little white flies that I can't get rid of don't destroy them. They're developing some rust on the leaves, and some of these leaves are curling. So for sure I can get, see the curling leaves? And do you see the flies? Spray these with neem oil and they laugh at me, honestly. But this is a beautiful vine. If I start growing these mid-September into early October, I can get at least 2 rounds of these beautiful pole beans. They are a stringless variety. There we go. Looks like I got a harvest today. They're a stringless variety, which means you can just cook them whole without having to worry about stringing them. Just snip off the ends, and I even eat them fresh. They're kind of sweet. They're really good. If you've never eaten fresh green beans straight out of the garden, you should. They're yummy. Okay, I've got to get somewhere where I can film this and not film my shadow. This area back here is a giant weed patch. It was where I planted the rest of those onions, and only a few of them are surviving. So in the next week or so, I'm going to take this out. And I know I don't want to bring in any, I'm still eating, guys, so sorry for all the noise. I know I don't want to bring in a lot of inputs into the garden. I want to start saving money, but I'm going to have to in this situation. I'll show you why. Because I am here in South Florida, our soil is mostly sand. And I want to make sure you can see me. I want you to watch this. Can you see that? I'm going to bring in some composted cow manure and maybe 2 or 3 bags. I'm going to get the weeds out of there and put some composted cow manure in there. The struggle's real. And then that'll bulk up the stuff in there. I'm going to keep it mulched really well in the summer. It just gets depleted. So if you have really sandy soil, you're going to have to periodically bring in things unless you can get wood chips. I have not been able to get wood chips for a couple of years. But when I got wood chips early on, when I was first gardening, the wood chips just turned the soil into magic. It was amazing. Here's another failure. This is another failure. This is my potato patch. Now in December, we can plant potatoes here in South Florida from like just November through February. So in December, I got store-bought potatoes, organic. I sprouted them, and I did them just like you're supposed to do on the area over there. They shot up out of the ground, half of them did. They looked beautiful, and then one day they just didn't, and they died. And I thought, well, maybe it's because I didn't get seed potatoes. Well, we can plant, like I said, between November and February on average. So, February, I went and got certified seed potatoes. I did 4 rows. I've lost 2 already. I thought I was going to get these. This is the only good looking plant that I have here. I planted 4 different varieties to see which ones would do well. Red Norland, Russets, Yukon Gold, and Kennebecs. And the Red Norlands and the Kennebecs both succumbed to whatever was going on. And this is very disappointing, but look at this. Can you see that web? What the heck is that? Are these web worms? I have no idea what this is. If you guys have tips, especially here in South Florida, for growing potatoes, please put them in the comments below, because I am just... I'm done. Unless I can figure out a way to not waste money. And, you know, I've already got, between the organic potatoes from the grocery store and the seed potatoes I bought, I've already got $50 in that, and I could have went to the farmer's market and gotten a 50-pound bag of potatoes for $20. So, I'm kind of sad. Nevertheless, let's go on. Now we're back up here by where the cantaloupe was. And look at these beautiful beans. This is a purple hyacinth bean, and I'm growing these as an ornamental. They are edible, but they have higher levels of some toxins, so they have to be cooked a certain way. But this is supposed to be perennial here where I live in South Florida. Can grow it as an annual other places in the country where it would be killed by frost. But it is beautiful. Look how much it's grown already. It's going to top this trellis. I've started some on the other side a few weeks later, but it is going to top this beautiful arbor, and hopefully I'm going to have just beautiful flowers several times a year. And there's a peek at some of the flowers that are just starting to pop, and then the pods, when they come out, are this beautiful burgundy purple color. And right here I have some pickle bush cucumbers just starting to come up the trellis. Okay, so far, and still so far, the only sure bets I have for your summer garden in South Florida that I've mentioned, that I've shown you, are black-eyed peas and red noodle beans. But there's a lot more we could grow. Oh, and the log of spinach and the longevity spinach. That's 4. Everything else I've shown you, trial and error, man. Panning back around this way, this is a 3 trellis system. I have put on a diagonal, and I'll tell you why. Because in the wintertime, when the sun is hanging low in the southern sky, you know, and we have shorter days, I want to be able to take advantage of all the sunshine I can get, and I like to grow tomatoes on there. I'm trying to find angles where the sun's not going to blind me or totally like wash out the picture. Back here, and I'm standing just underneath the plant nursery in this back right corner. But back here, I have put in a 3 trellis system. There's so 1, 2, and 3. And of course, there's my green stalk. I'm going to grow my peppers in there underneath this shade cloth. I have suspended shade cloth on T-posts and long poles. And what I'm going to do is cut that last part out. I'm in here in the nursery trying to escape the sunshine. Anyhow, because the camera angles are awful. But I did want to talk to you about why I put up shade cloth and the issues we have to deal with in the summertime. Now, if you're not down in South Florida, you may not have to deal with this until later in the summer. But here, as soon as it starts getting hot, we're so close to the equator that our UV exposure is really high, which can burn up some plants. So I like to grow tomatoes in the fall, the winter, let them finish up in the spring, because I know that they're going to be cool enough. We're going to have, I just have to cover them in case of frost, which we hardly ever get here. But if you're growing in the spring and summer tomatoes, you can extend your growing season by putting up a shade cloth. All I did with this was put some fencing on T-post, stretched it out, put it together with some zip ties, and at the end of each one of them I have a palm tree that grows like 20 feet tall. It looks like bamboo, but it's not. You could use bamboo, you could use PVC pipe. I think I cut these at 12-foot lengths, so you don't have to go that high. And I have zip tied those poles to the edge and hung a shade cloth from the top with just zip ties. Now what I did was, like, here's the T-post and here's the pole, the big tall pole. I did not climb on a ladder to get up there. I leaned the pole back, rested it on each T-post, and attached the shade cloth that I had stretched over all the trellises. And then once the shade cloth was attached, I raised the pole up and fastened it onto the T-post. I hope that's explanatory. I did make a video on it, but the files got corrupted. I've been having some issues with some corrupted files lately. So surefire bet, I know I can grow these beefsteak tomatoes that I got at Walmart. They were an Expert brand instead of the Bonnie plants, and they were only $1.97, which I was really happy about. And all the Roma tomatoes that I wanted to plant, I put in here, and the cutworms got them. So I got these beefsteak plants, and they were a whole lot bigger, and the cutworms only got one, which is the one I showed you in the kitchen. And I have been really spraying with neem oil there, trying to you know, saturate that area. I don't know if it's cutworms or if it's pill bugs, because the pill bugs, they look like little gray silver oval shaped bugs with a lot of legs. They're invading my raised beds, and I've had to do I'm trying some different things. I don't know what's working. They're all organic. I'm trying them, and they will eat if they run out of organic matter. I know they're good for your compost and everything, but when their numbers get really large, they run out of organic matter to eat, they will start eating your plants. So that's my dilemma. I'm working on it. And I ordered something else. I tried a neem drench that I got from Gary the Rustic Gardener with castile soap, neem oil, and peppermint oil. And I tried that, and it knocked him back quite a bit. But also I've ordered something else that I saw from North Texas Vegetable Gardening, I think is the channel. It's called Sluggo. It's not the normal Sluggo, it's the Sluggo Plus, I think it's called. And I'm going to try that next. And it's organic as well. So there's that. Now let's look at what else I'm growing, and then we'll talk about what else you can grow in summertime. Over here, I planted some Cushaw squash. This is one of those experiments. They're under my banana trees. They'll get some sun, and as the sun gets higher in the sky, they'll get more sun. I'm hoping, and they're also going to branch out, and I'm hoping that they'll get sufficient sun and they'll do well. I've never grown it before, so I don't know what to expect. Over here, at the end of this trellis, where it faces west, see, the sun comes up over there in the east and travels across the sky and sets over there in the west. So whatever is on this trellis here is going to get full afternoon exposure. So I'm growing surefire things over here, surefire things that will deal with the heat even through summer. On this side of the trellis, I have planted yard-long beans. They're in the same family as the red noodle beans. As a matter of fact, this is a variety pack, and they do have some red noodle beans in there. So these will be red and green yard-long beans. And on this outside here, I have planted more of the cowpeas, the California cowpeas, which are black-eyed peas. Here I have the lone pigeon pea that survived being planted directly into the ground, and it has already given me a harvest, and it's flowering again for another harvest. It'll live for 3 to 4 years. It gets anywhere from 5 to 7 foot tall. It stays a nice shrub. It has beautiful flowers, and you can harvest periodically. See, they're just starting to open, and you can harvest periodically all throughout the year. So this pigeon pea is a really good nitrogen fixer. It's good for chop and drop. It's good for your food forest. It's good for your vegetable garden. It's good for your landscape. It's one of those things that you could grow in the front yard, out by the walkway, and nobody would ever know that you're growing food. And this is my Barbados cherry. This will be the second year, so I'm hoping to get some fruit off of that. We're going to go over here into the plant nursery. I'm going to show you what else I've got started to go out in the garden. Here I have started pigeon peas, starting them in the pots, and then I'm going to let them get a little stronger before I put them out. These are the black-eyed Susan vines I was telling you about. They're great for pollinators. I've started some various peppers and different things. This is an entire tray of burgundy okra. Okra is a surefire bet. It will grow all summer long. This is an experiment I'm doing where I just cut up some strawberries and buried the skins here. We'll see what happens there. These are some of my sweet peppers, and they're growing a little slow. Now that it's warmer, they're growing a little faster, but my hot peppers are already up and at them. So I am going to up pot these into bigger pots with some more amendments, and those will be a surefire thing. Here's some more squash, different varieties of squash, and these normally are a surefire thing, but like I said, I have struggled. So they're not as easy to grow in the summer in the heat. I don't think they're going to stay when it gets hot. And this is Perkins long pod okra. It is a green okra. You can let the pods get a little longer and they're not super tough. And I've started them in here and I'm going to plant them out. And there's some herbs in there as well as some grocery store pepper seeds. And the okra is a surefire thing, and here's some eggplants. They weren't doing really great, so I up-potted them into these 2.5-inch pots from Bootstrap Farmer. I like them, they're really deep. They give the plant a little more room to grow, and I started with expert potting soil mix that I got at Walmart. So back here near the entrance to the garden, I completely forgot to do this. I'm going to show it to you now. Since I did the video, I watered, so you'll see things are a little wet. But here, along here, I have planted carrots, and I planted a borage, and the borage has taken over everything. The borage is so beautiful. The carrots I planted out really early in the year, and they're getting about to the point where I can harvest some of that. I just let them get a little bit bigger. And these are Carota carrots. This is the beautiful borage. You can use borage. You can eat the flowers. I'm leaving these on for the bees. You can eat these lovely little flowers. They kind of have a cucumber taste. You can chop and drop these leaves in your garden. You can chop them up and make liquid fertilizer. They develop really deep tap roots, and so they draw up lots of minerals and things in the garden. And borage is a really nice plant to have. Sadly, this is not going to last when we start getting into those 90s, the mid 90s and up, which unfortunately I looked at the weather forecast and we're supposed to be 98 degrees next Monday, and here it is just not even April yet. That's beautiful. Here's some carrots. This is multiplying onion, and I have some posts here because I'm trying to figure out if I want to put a shade cloth up later on. This is a multiplying onion. This was one onion, now it's 4, and they'll start multiplying and I can divide them later. And they're mostly good for the greens, the scallions, but they like the heat and they like the sun, so they're a really good choice. So that's a surefire bet right there. This is the bok choy that's gone to seed. It's flowered, gone to seed, and I'm leaving it here because these little beauties love it. And they've not had a lot of food all winter, so it's really good. They need to start getting, you know, all the goodies they can get. Here's something super exciting for me. Now these are the tiny bell peppers I planted. in the first part of the year. They're just getting up and getting peppers on them. But these, my grandson planted out late last fall. We were feeding some peppers from the farmer's market to the rabbits, and he said, "Look at these seeds, I'm going to plant them." And he ran over here and planted them. And from planting the whole entire core of a bell pepper, he got 2 beautiful plants. And let me see if I can show you these. Can you see that? They are going to be ready to harvest pretty soon. There's more back there. And there's more of those beautiful nasturtiums. Sadly, the nasturtiums will not last when it starts to get really hot. Oh, the bees do love when your brassica plants go to flower. The bees love it. And it's so beautiful. And here's one more thing I'm going to show you. This is for the bees. We've been in a drought for months. It's only rained like twice in over 4 months. This is just a shallow dish with some rocks in it, so they can stand on them and drink. Sometimes bees will drown in swimming pools and bird baths because they don't realize how deep the water is. And if they fall in, they can't get out. So this is not everything that you can grow in summer. I'm just telling you what I'm growing. That's my surefire bet. Longevity spinach, Lagos spinach, noodle beans, yard-long beans, same difference, black-eyed peas, okra, eggplant, and I am giving it a go with the squash just because I personally, in my area, have a terrible time with powdery mildew and all of that, but it will grow. This is the time to grow it. This is the time to plant summer squash. I'm also testing winter squash and melons. This is the time to get planted your melons, your summer squash, and we're all going to have the struggles, you know? So that's that. Listen, this video is getting really long, and I wanted to show you the herb garden, and I do also want to show you my brand new garden. That's going to be, it's beautiful. That's going to be a whole new thing, but those are going to have to be other videos. So until next time, thanks for hanging out with me. Bye, y'all. And I don't know if I'm keeping all of that. This video is going to be long because I'm a motor mouth. I could get up off the ground. Crickets. They are a stringless variety. Where are you at? Where am I at? Here we go.